Day one, we had 120-kilometer gust winds.
If you just do a bit of creative problem solving, there's a way to make it work.
Yeah, it's very fast-paced, but I love it. It's worth all the time in the world and all the money in the world.
What did we say yes to?
If I want my film being made, we can actually do this. This is new. This is a new way of funding things.
What have we done?
Literally, that's when it hit us.
Yes, that is exactly what it's about.
We're incredibly lucky with the country that we live in.
It's like the hardest thing you ever have to do, but at the same time, you love it and you know you're going to make yourself do it all over again.
Almost weird to think that this has gone that far.
I'm excited to introduce a very special guest, Jordon Prince-Wright. So Jordon is the director and one of the producers of the feature film Before Dawn. This war movie tells the powerful story of a fictional WA outback kid, Jim Collins, and his battalion on the Western Front. The film had a remarkable budget of $9 million, or approximately, which included an impressive $1.4 million worth of pyrotechnics. It premiered to a sold-out audience in April this year, and I was fortunate enough to attend. This premiere was a groundbreaking event, and I would say the first of its kind in Western Australia, filling every single cinema room and selling out every single seat. Before Dawn has been shown all over Australia and is now making its way into international markets and popular streaming services. So with that out of the way, hi Jordon, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
No worries at all. That was an amazing intro.
I'm glad you're happy with it.
I am, yeah, very, very good. You kind of set the bar pretty high there.
There's some impressive numbers on that film.
Well, definitely, yeah, definitely. And to think that it was all kind of community driven and sponsorship and in
Exactly.
kind, and it wasn't just a cash component. That's when it's that outside of the box sort of business structure. That's when it makes it even more impressive. It's like, wow, that's quite a fair bit. I don't think people really understand that.
I feel like your film has done quite a lot, actually. You know, there are people that I know who they're not even really in film or anything, but because they've heard about this particular film doing so well in this premiere and everything, it makes them a bit more proud of WA in general. So I think that's a pretty cool effect that it's had.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like years and years ago, when I was making short films, I was like, oh, let's try it. And it was very entrepreneurial, et cetera, et cetera. It was like, okay, this outside of the box sort of way of thinking. We can't get funding, so let's approach the shires, let's approach businesses, and kind of did that, and then did it on a bigger scale with the last feature film I did, The Western, and then we're like, okay, now let's do it on steroids with Before Dawn, and we're starting to notice that there's a lot of other filmmakers across Australia going, oh wow, not just WA, but Australia going, wow, this is it. If I want my film being made, we can actually do this. This is new. This is a new way of funding things. Yeah, it's great to see that, people are actually recognizing that sort of new structure of making films. And I mean, it worked for us on many, many films, as you've seen, and then on Before Dawn. Yeah, it's really at the end of the day, if you've got the hard work, the passion, and an amazing team behind you, pretty much everything else is, well, I wouldn't say easy, because filmmaking is not easy, but it helps move things along a little bit easier.
Yeah. It can be done.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you're like me when I was younger in high school and whatnot, it was always like, oh yeah, we can do it. I don't care. It was like, oh well, this isn't possible, because you're so ignorant and tunnel vision. You're just like, let's just ignore that. We'll just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you realize that you put yourself through a world of hurt.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the good thing about it is that you can come up with almost anything, and maybe you don't have like a Marvel scale budget or anything like that, but if you just do a bit of creative problem solving, there's a way to make it work.
Oh, definitely. And I think there's something magical about that as well, because it's not just, we're not sure what we're doing here, let's just, here's some money that'll just fix it and done. Yeah. It's there's something magical about, okay, we really need things outside the box here, and it really makes you focus more on the story and what you're putting on screen, because you're getting less and less opportunities to get it right, because it's not a case of, if it's not right, we'll just go do a pickup shoot, because that's going to cost more money, and that's money that we may not have. So you're really going through everything over and over and over again to make sure that what you capture and what you're putting on that screen is 110%, because you're only getting one shot at it. And like you mentioned in the opening, the pyrotechnics for one of the shots, which was 14 seconds or thereabouts, $1.4 million, 8 months worth of surveying the ground and planning and course, 2.8 on the Richter scale, which was kind of a nice little flex, but we never expected that.
Yeah.
And that was like, we had one shot. So
Yeah.
it's like, you make sure that all those cameras are rolling.
That's just one of the crazy things about film. It's just the fact that so much stuff went into, as you said, like 14 seconds of film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, if it makes the audience, if we get the reaction that we want out of that audience, it's worth it. It's worth all the time in the world and all the money in the world to get that reaction and to take them on that journey.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so let's go into the first question. So this is just one that I like to ask everyone because it's always fun to hear the different reasons. When did you decide to become a filmmaker, and how did you actually get started? So what were those first few steps that you did?
Those that know me know I was born in the wrong era. So I grew up watching Brenner, Steve McQueen, John Wayne. Like my old man would go to back when Video Easy and Blockbuster was a thing. He'd go there and get these, old movies and black and white movies. And I remember him saying to me one day, it's like, I was chatting to the staff and they said, these must be for your dad, as in like his dad. And he turns around and he's like, no, this is for my 5-year-old son who, has gone from watching The Wiggles to now watching all these old movies. But I was always fascinated, and even growing up, I was always fascinated with not just the films and the stories, but the process. And I always wanted to buy DVDs because I wanted to see how they did, made it. And in primary school, ran around. I was like, had a little handy cam that I'd film with, and one thing led to another. Got to high school, and I was 13 when I was told that yes, you can actually study film in Australia. It wasn't this. For me, it was this thing that you had to do in America, and it's impossible, and therefore I'm going to go into customs. I'm going into this essentially, as my parents saw it, government paid job. It pays really well. And then I was told by my school that, no, you can actually study media, and there's a thing called Whopper and etc. here in WA. And I went home that night and said, guess what? I'm actually going to do filmmaking. And to the shock of my parents, that went, he's going from a government paid job to customs, which is definitely. He's going to go into the arts industry, which who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
And but look, my parents are very supportive in everything. In fact, they're always on set. Dad's, those that know our sets, they're very family orientated.
Yeah.
Dad's also on set. Everything that goes wrong, it's like, yep, Dad will sort it. Or whatever, as everyone says, pass it off to Jeff. But yeah, and then that kind of then I started making short films. Those short films got into festivals. Those festivals got me awards. I got to meet Jack Thompson, who gave me some incredible advice. I got to meet other filmmakers, and then just bit by bit, it just kind of, with almost like a matter of a very short period of time, everything just blew up very quickly. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I blinked, and I was like, I'm directing a feature film, a Western, and then I blink again. I'm like, now I'm directing a war film, and now I feel like I've only just released Before Dawn, and it's going crazy all over the world. And now I'm off to work with a major studio in December and 2 features next year. And it's just like, and I'll rest when I'm dead. As the saying goes. So I'm just kind of enjoying the wild ride. But at the end of it, I think what's really worked for me and what I've been incredibly lucky with is I've had an incredible team around me. Because you're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with. And because I've had that incredible team, that incredible cast to work with and crew to work with, and everything's kind of timing and just being, like, we're going to do this. Is it impossible? Probably. So let's do it. Is it a challenge? That's even more enticing. Let's do it. Which some would say is a flaw of mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, it's kind of just been, it has been quite incredible, really. I kind of look back at it now and I'm like, there's a lot that's happened in the last few years, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to come.
Yeah. You blink a few more times, the whole world will be different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
remember when COVID hit, it was like, okay, we're going to have to postpone now, and it was postponing for 6 months, 12 months, we're not sure. And the crew that have worked with me for a long time, one of them actually turned around and said, this is very dangerous because this gives Jordon another 6 to 12 months worth to make things get even bigger. And guess what? They did. It was like, one of the sets went from, I think it was 10 to 30 tons of wood. So yeah, it was like, and then the weather helped the weather kind of started to erode away the set and everything. So it worked out really nicely. But yeah, it was quite incredible. Let's put it that way. And then a lot of people were quite worried, actually, that, we had the extra few months up our sleeves.
They just imagine you just tinkering away in a quiet room somewhere. For those who haven't seen the film just yet, could you summarize what Before Dawn is about? And could you maybe go into some of the themes and the messages that are behind it?
Yeah, with Before Dawn, I mean, I get asked regularly what it's about. And yes, it's a World War I movie. It's based on true events at WA Anzacs. And it's a story that I read these diaries back in high school. And, you know, these events kind of stood out. And as I started to speak to various people, it's like, oh, you know, World War I and Anzacs. And everyone would go, oh, Gallipoli. And like, well, there was actually 3.5 years that followed Gallipoli. And there was, kid you not, there was even someone that said, oh, I didn't even realise that the Australian and New Zealanders fought anywhere other than Gallipoli in World War One. And so that was kind of like the driving force going, okay, this is the story here. This is what we've got to tell. And, you know, in the way of, and then we started kind of developing the script, and it was hard to actually go, okay, well, we know what we're telling here. We're telling a World War One Anzac film based on true events. That's the underlying thing, but it's like it's got so many themes. It actually got to a point that was like a 300-page script that we had to cut down, and which, you know, is better to have more than not. But you know, I've always thought, okay, look, it's a coming of age film. It's got the awareness of, I've made it purely for the awareness of the story and the sacrifices of those men and women.
Yep.
But you know, I've had people come out of the cinema and go, oh, you know, I really loved the fact that it was a father-son story. Others come out and they go, oh, I really love the fact that it was a coming of age story, or I love that it was a war film. And in a sense, you know, there's a lot of times there'll be people that go, oh, what is the element, or what is the exact theme of this film? It's like, well, I think sometimes an audience is going to come out of the cinema, out of that theater, and they're going to have their own interpretation of it. And as a director and as a filmmaker, as long as I know what I want it to be, great. But then I also think what's magical about cinema is everybody can have a different perspective because of their own experiences and their own backgrounds. And so for me, when I do get asked, okay, what's the film about? Well, predominantly it's a World War I film based on true events of the Anzacs. But in the way of the themes and what it's saying, it's like, well, as an audience member, I don't want to tell you what it's about. I want you to sit there and I want you to make your own mind up. And it's really good because the fact that this film is so raw and it feels like you're reading the diaries. It means that you can connect and you can kind of almost have your own understanding from it. And yeah, I mean, I think also that's why we've had people come out of the cinema in tears, which is great. I've gone on this emotional roller coaster, which is what we set out to do.
Yeah. So it's like one of those situations where someone comes out, it's like, oh, I love how the film is about this. And you're like, yes, that is exactly what it's about.
Don't get me wrong. I've had that sometimes with critics. They go, oh, I love how you use this particular color scheme and how that was symbolic for something later. And I've gone, yep, exactly. Meanwhile, thinking that was actually filmed in completely the other order and we never planned on that prop or this prop or whatever. And we just go with it. But yeah,
that's it. I love that. That's fantastic. Can you walk us through the timeline for a film like this? So how long, from the moment that you had the idea all the way up until now, pretty much? And then how long were each of those steps? You know, how long did it take to write the script and for pre-production, etc.?
Yeah, a lot of people underestimate what it takes to make a film, for starters, and they also underestimate the time that it takes. And if you were to Google how long a movie takes, on average, it's 5 to 7 years. That's usually what it takes, which is a long time. And those that know me know I have no patience for that. Yeah, read those diaries back in high school, but it was kind of like it was put up to the side because it had the short films, then had the Western, but everything was kind of leading up to this, bit like how Before Dawn is leading up to something else. And so it was a case of, all right, when we decided we were going to make Before Dawn, it was the way I kind of like to structure things. It's a year of pre-production, it's a year of production, a year of post-production. It did stretch out to almost 4 years because of the COVID postponement, but that's just unfortunate, but also was fortunate because we were able to rejig things and use that time wisely with the script and also build bigger sets and make the film bigger and more epic. Yeah, it was very much that I like to keep that structure. So very, if we work towards those deadlines, and I even had that post-production going, these are your deadlines, and 2 weeks out they'd go, oh, we need an extra week. And sometimes it would be, okay, you get an extra week, and other times we're like, no, that's the deadline, that's it, because otherwise deadlines will keep getting pushed, and then before long you don't even have the film, and I was already discussing the premiere date before we had even done final deliverables to really kind of push the team going, You were going to start buying tickets, so you better finish the film.
The editor didn't go to sleep that night.
No. But yeah, that's kind of usually when I go. So a bit like the next one, we have started pre-production for that early this year, and that'll go through to approximately April next year, because I'm on another project till Feb, and then it'll be a year worth of production, and then a year of post-production, and a 2027 release. But everything's also up in the air. So risk of market. Is it the right time to release? Before Dawn could have released Remembrance Day in 2023, which they were looking at doing at one stage, but then they went, no, it's going to be more beneficial early April, have opening weekend, then you have Anzac Day, and so those that weren't in the industry going, oh, why are we still not releasing around Remembrance Day? And it's like, if you had to sit there and tell everyone and explain everything, it was like you'd never get a film made.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to it, and even when the film premieres, there's all these starting lines, and I find the production's finished. You finish filming, the next starting line's post-production. The edit's finished, then it's another starting line, which is your visual effects or your sound design. That finishes, and it's and then even the premiere. The premiere's been the starting line for countless event screenings, press. Like the other day, there were 10-minute interviews back to back, and they were 3 hours. It was 3 hours long worth, and I was like, "Wow, that's all done." And the American PR team goes, "Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow because we've got 4 days worth of this." And it's like, "Wow, that's a lot." And you do get to a point where you're going, "Now, did I just say that, or was that to the previous person?" But, but it's incredibly rewarding, because it goes to show that a film that's been shot here in Western Australia, like it's going to all the advanced screenings in America and in Europe, all sold out, and now it's doing really well over there. And it's a testament to go, hey, yeah, here we are down under, and not only that, here we are in Western Australia, and we've got amazing talent here, and we're making these films, and they're doing really well worldwide, and they've all been done with community support, sponsorship, and business partnerships and whatnot across Australia. So yeah, I really kind of take my hat off to the cast and crew, because they have done an incredible job to get it to where it is. And then the premiere, and now it's just, and I mean, there's more announcements and all that to come, and the fact now it's even on all the airlines. We announced Qantas, Jetstar, plus all their affiliate airlines, and there are other international airlines that we're announcing soon as well. So it's kind of, it's almost weird to think that this has gone that far.
Locations are definitely a big thing for this film. So how many different locations did you use? How did you find those locations? And can you tell us how you managed to make these locations feel epic on screen?
Yeah, so that was, I think, one of the biggest challenges actually, was going, okay, I want to build everything to scale. I want to have everything built according to these trench maps. Now we need to find a whole stack of land. We need to go to some farmer and go, hey, can you not put your crop in for the next year? Because we want to dig up your land, and also not only do we want to dig it up, we want to blow it up in areas as well. And so, but hey, look, that's what we did. We ended up traveling around Western Australia, meeting various farmers, and through connections that my family's got as well. And we came across the Scott family and Mark Scott, his farm, and he was so enthusiastic that he had actually taken out like a digger that night and was testing this different soil type to check that, hey, yeah, look, this is definitely the right soil type. And that's when I knew. I was like, yeah, okay, this is the place that we're going to film. This is going to work. And what was even stranger is that part of the farm was a blue gum farm. So it was a tree farm, essentially. And they had pushed over the trees in this area, but they'd left a few of them standing. And there's a wide shot in the film where the battalion is marching up this hill, and there's the horses on the horizon, and there's all these trees. And that is actually, we've done that according to replicated a photograph, essentially. But what's weird is that Mark and his team had pushed all these trees away, except these 8 or 10 trees. And those 8 or 10 trees happen to be standing in exactly the same spot and the same positioning as the trees were in this black and white photo that we wanted to replicate. And I'm like, this is spooky. And if there's any sign saying that we should be filming here, that's telling us that we should be filming here. So, yes, we did that. And it was also, to make it epic, was actually more about the details. Like if you had the trench done properly, you had all the network, you had the right communication saps. If you started having all that, like Daniel Quinn, who was our DOP, he said half of his job was done because we built everything. A bit like how half of my job was done as a director because we cast correctly. I'm a strong believer in that. And and then going up north, we filmed the Midwest region, and those that know and seen my previous films, even shorts, I love filming up there. There's just something spectacular and captivating and magical about being in the outback in the middle of nowhere, where you literally, at times there's no phone coverage, which those that know me know I'm on my phone all the time. So it's amazing. It's like, let's go film there because no one can get hold of me. For me, it's just I love showcasing the Australian landscape. So to be able to do that by showcasing that with the Midwest, but then going, hey, and not only that, we're turning Western Australia into the Western Front here. We've done a 1800s Western, we've done the Western Front, and considering what we're doing next, it really goes to show that if you're creative, you can make any location work. That's purely what it comes down to. So yes, it was incredibly exciting to work in. I mean, Esperance was the coldest and the wettest winter on record that we filmed. So I wanted rain and I got it. I wanted it to look cold and I got it. We never want to see mud or sandbags ever again. And then like a week or so later, next minute we're up north and it's like 45 degrees. And next, and some of the interns were like, oh, it's really hot up here. We're going, this is lovely. You should have been with us the last 7 weeks down in Esperance.
Yeah, everyone's stretching their wrinkly toes.
So, yeah, pretty much so. But no, I love filming WA, and I love the fact that even the next one I'll be able to film over east as well. There's just something magical, and even something that I've been chatting with recently with like some of the American reporters. They're all saying, there must be something in the water down there in Australia. You guys are making great films, and we just love seeing the landscape and we take it for granted, here living in Australia. We drive past the beaches every day. We're like, whatever, yeah, it looks all right, and even where I live, I live pretty much semi-rural, and it's the same sort of thing right near a beach, and it's just like, oh yeah, that looks nice. But now and then I take the time, especially recently with certain events and whatnot, to take the time and actually sit there and go, okay, well, let's take this in, and because we're incredibly lucky with the country that we live in, and to be able to just kind of sit there and see things and kind of go, okay, wait, and then it's actually in those moments I find that you sit there and go, oh, this would be a good idea for a film. Let's jot it down.
Because on the locations question, because when I was watching the film, and as at the time of recording this interview, I haven't seen the behind the scenes for the film just yet, so maybe that'll answer some questions. But because when I was watching the film, even though the majority of it is set inside of trenches, it never feels like we're in the same place. Everything always feels new. Like every scene feels like a new location. And so my mind was just really curious, because I'm imagining that you probably had like 3 different trenches and you just tried to make them look like different trenches or something like that.
No, we were nutters. And
Okay.
Yep. We did actually have quite a couple wide shots that kind of were like, oh, wait, hey, look, look at the size of the scale of the set that we've got here. But the good thing with the docker is the docker will show all that. But the actual film itself, we did that. The problem with that was it started to take away from that intimate storytelling that I wanted between the boys, between what they were going through, the various characters. It took away from this. We've gone from an outback where everything's very vast and wide, and we've been stuck now in this trench. And it wasn't, I wanted to feel, you wanted to feel that it was almost claustrophobic. We wanted that. And some of those shots started to take away from that. But also the biggest shot in the film, really, which was one of the key ones that we discussed we were going to do very early on, the script writing phase, was coming out of that trench. I said, I want to come out of the trench and I want to look from a crane and see them all running up the hill and seeing how, pointless it is. And then we're like, no, we did a few test shoots and they weren't small enough. So I went, let's go get a drone. Let's send this drone up right in the air. And then they literally look like little ants and you see how pointless it is. And it also helps signify that we're telling all this individual stories. But when you see the 200 odd extras running up that hill, it's like, we're only showing this little section. That's all we're showing, this little section out of all of them. And that's what I started to find, that some of the shots that we were doing outside of the trench, it wasn't feeling right. And that's when we were filming it in the first week or two. And I was like, no, we need to be in that trench. If I'm standing at the top here with the camera, something's wrong. We need to be in there. And I'm so glad that that's what we did, because even there were a couple shots we did do outside of the trench, just with time. We're like, oh, we got some extra time, let's get some extra coverage, that sort of thing. Never used any of them in the edit room. Like, they were just pointless.
I like, from watching the film, I feel like you had a good ratio. Like it was mostly inside the trench, and you just had those couple of special wider shots just to show that there is moments. A world, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was that special, and it also, by doing that, just sprinkling it made it even more like it was a breath of fresh air. It was like, wow, this is really special. And to the characters, it was. And then as the audience, you're also really feeling it as well. So
that's
was
cool.
the aim all along.
Right. Are you able to give us a breakdown of the costs for a film like Before Dawn? And are you maybe able to divvy up what percentages went to which aspects?
Everything cost too much.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's a producer's response. I want it bigger and cheaper. That's what George Lucas said.
Yeah. You're like, I want 100 people. It's like, you got 5.
Yeah. Well, I was quite lucky with this because, to be honest, when I was sitting there on the second week with Daniel Quinn, and we saw 300 extras march past, and that's when we were like,
what have we done?
Project. That was when that's when it hit us. So for that sort of sake, it was taking an initial investment. It was going with sponsors. I had already built that network of sponsors plus adding to it. So it was going, okay, well, not only do we have like Ford on board, but now I want to get BP, Caltex. We had Integrity Coach Lines. The $1.4 million alone just went to Pyrotechnics, as we were mentioning before. So it was a huge mix. We haven't actually gone through and done the exact figures yet to actually do the breakdown. But it's one of those things that you kind of go, okay, well, you always need cash. You need it for, your food, that sort of thing. The stuff that you can't get away with getting in kind. But then you go, well, actually, hang on. Like, for instance, food I've just mentioned. It's like, well, why don't we get IGA on board? And we got IGA on board. And then we go, well, why don't we get some of the Rotary clubs on board and get them on board? And so there's always ways to bring that cost down. And so the cash component on this was quite minimal compared to the fact that the majority of it was actually all in kind and sponsorship. And that was done and that was purely because we set out to say, hey, it's a community-driven film. With what I do with our company and the support for Telethon, for those that are not aware, it's a charity that supports the Children's Hospital, used to be PMH, Princess Margaret Hospital. And I had a brain tumor when I was 3. And if it wasn't for Telethon, so it was an ear tumor going into the brain, etc., without going into too much details, if it wasn't for Telethon, there wouldn't have been funding, which essentially, long story short, saved my life. And I spent a lot of my childhood in PMH. So early on, and a lot of my films, we've always tried to do the telethon, community cinemas. We've always had screenings where we've donated telethon, the premiere night. We actually had that as like a telethon set up as well for donation. So it was right at the start. I was going, okay, well, look, you're coming on board with this, but the purpose of this film, is for charity at the end of it, but also it's an awareness story. We want people to be aware of the sacrifices of those men and women, and business was going, oh yeah, great, we want to do that. And then they go, oh, and you're also doing charity. Yeah, we're in. That's it. In fact, one company, I think it might have actually been BP, we're chatting with them. They're like, yeah, we want to do it. And all they heard was the word, they're like, oh, you're doing some charity stuff. Cool. So what is it? Is it a theater show? Is it I'm like, no. And in fact, even some of the guys that were coming out to assist with the blast, the big blast, and they were doing the surveying, and they're going, oh, so when's the documentary coming out? And I'm like, no, this is not this is before we decided we're making a documentary on it. No, it's not a documentary. Oh, so it's like a TV show? Or like, no, this is a movie. This is what we keep telling you. It's a movie. So everyone was just in it because they just saw, oh, wow, there's a lot of passionate people behind this. We want to jump on board.
It's funny that you have that effect on people and companies. They'll just say yes before they know what it is. It makes me wonder. It's like your next project could just be the most absurd, outrageous thing, and then they're like, "What did we say yes to?"
Yeah. Well, it's funny though. It's like in the early days, it'd be for every 300 emails. 10 people would get back. Out of the 10, 4 would want meetings, 1 would say yes. It's like a rough estimate. That's literally what it was like. And it was cold calls. I remember walking around Osborne Park, knocking on all these doors and going, hey, this is a film I'm making, doing a pitch. And I think I raised like 5 or 6 grand from that. But no, it's nothing, but for the films back then, it was a big thing. But even someone that gave me $100 today may give me 50,000 tomorrow. So you treat everybody with that same sort of level that everybody's supporting here. And that's like what was so important, for instance, on the premiere night. We have all our VIPs, but then still, they're all your big money sponsors. But then you still have all these other sponsors where, in their eyes, what they've given you is still just as equivalent, because their business may not be as big. And you tend to find that if you start losing some of those small contributions, everything falls down. You need all of that in between. So that's why it's so important that something like that on the night, you go around, you have to speak to everyone. You have to have that personal connection, because once you start having that personal connection with them all, then they go, okay, what's next? What are we working on next together? And that's when they start saying that, you're like, yeah, they're in it with me. They're in it with the cast and crew, and a lot of them are. Like, pretty much the majority of all the sponsors are on board with the next one. And
they've already said yes. You haven't written it yet,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you're building all of these relationships constantly with like every single person involved, which is cool.
Yeah, it's definitely about building those relationships, and it's also really good because I find, as we know, Australia is very all about the sports, and it's starting to shift now. We're starting to see that it's actually really the arts, it's important. And so you go to car companies, and they have on the wall, they'll have all the AFL thank you things that they've sponsored. They'll have motocross or whatever it is, all your and stuff that you kind of go, oh yeah, that's what he sponsors. But then you don't look up there and go, oh, they sponsor a theatre show, or they're sponsoring a film. You don't see anything that's artistic, or they're sponsoring some art show. So to go in there and be like, hey, I want you to support a movie, it's like, oh, hang on, what? What? This isn't sport, So you kind of got to get over that hurdle first. But then when they start getting connected, they see how important it is. Like COVID, if it wasn't for the arts, people would go insane. We had music, TV, streaming, etc. Is because of the arts that everyone was insane. It was, and that's kind of getting that across sometimes can be a bit tricky. But once people do, they see the value in the arts, and they see the value in the stories that we're wanting to tell. And I've personally seen the shift in the last few years. Whether that's because the films have got bigger, so everyone's wanting to come on board more, but I have seen that shift.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. There's a bit more of a community. Like, they're starting to see film as a real thing now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not just this thing that gets done in Hollywood. It's like, no, we actually can do that here in Australia. We just need the support to do so.
Throughout this whole process of making this new film, what would you say has been the biggest challenge, or what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Day one, we had 120 kilometre gust winds, on average 95 kilometre winds. The first scene that we were meant to be shooting was the tent scene, because I thought this would be easy, nice, easy sort of scene. And I kid you not, the whole set blew over. And anybody that says, oh, you're on a film set where things go wrong, well, they go, oh, I was on a film set and everything ran smoothly, they're lying, or they weren't actually that involved in the film set, because everything always goes wrong in a film set. I don't care how big the budget is. And it was like, this was the first day, and it was like, oh no, the set's blowing up. Okay, what are we going to shoot? We'll shoot the argument scene first between Nichols and Jim. We'll shoot that. And then we had torrential rain. Hey, it was great. It really kind of showed you, well, this is how this shoot's going to pan out. It's not going to be an easy shoot. But about 3 or 4 days in, we then started speaking with veterans. We had there was a karaoke night at the pub, and everyone really connected. But there was all these veterans, and they all and even current servicemen, and they started speaking to the cast and crew. And then people started to realize that this isn't just a film we're telling. It's not just a film. It's actually a really powerful, incredible story. And it's almost like we're making this for the veterans, for the Anzacs, etc. And everybody's perception kind of changed, that the worse it got, the more we laughed, the funnier everything got. My old man got stuck in the mud, waist deep in the mud, one day in one of the communication trenches. Now, if this was day one, everyone would have panicked, but this was like 2-3 weeks in. Everyone was taking photos and selfies with him, going, oh, this is great. And so things like that would happen. One of the assistant camera operators would do the clapperboard and then would hop out, and the next minute his welly boot would get stuck in the mud. So he'd have to hop back to get it, so it's out of the shot. But then as he's hopping along, his other welly boat would get stuck. It's like, oh. So it was, it was not an easy shoot. It was always cold. It was miserable until, of course, we went up north, which was, had its different challenges where we were dealing with 300 odd sheep. And, you never work with kids or animals, and sheep should be in their own category because they just,
Yeah, I think I remember you saying on the premiere night that you'll never work with sheep again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like never work with sheep ever again. Yeah. Although, I may have spoken too soon. But anyway, that's another story. So it's kind of it was a hard shoot, but for me, again, if you've got the right team around you and you're passionate about what you're doing, it actually becomes quite rewarding and easy. And I mean, we sit there now and laugh at it. I watched the documentary and the scenes that had to be edited out because they were more like inside jokes, but there's parts in that doc I was going, wow, that was pretty tough. That was tough shooting that. We're all sitting there. We're now sitting laughing, but at the time we weren't laughing.
It's like the hardest thing you ever have to do, but at the same time you love it and you're going to make yourself do it all over again.
Yeah, but as long as I don't have to see any sandbags ever again, because we filled thousands of sandbags, and I pride myself in being involved with every department and getting involved and whatnot. But I'd go into the art department and be like, here's a shovel and there's the sandbag chute, and away you go. We'll see you once these 1,000 are done, because 1,000 sandbags gets used up very quickly when you start stacking them in the trench. You put 1,000 just around the machine gun pit and the side trenches. So,
what are your plans for the future, and where do you see yourself in 5 and 10 years?
As long as I get to do what I love doing, which is directing, as long as it's that, I don't care. Someone the other day turned around and go, "Oh, are you going to go to Hollywood?" And it's like, no, don't want to go to Hollywood. And then I've got a contract that landed on my desk, which will have me filming over East End in LA. And I was like, oh, cool, that's cool. Yeah, all right, cool. But it's not planned, And I think if you start as a filmmaker going, oh yeah, 5 years from now, I'm going to make this big epic, blah, 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 or I'm going to make this artistic, this, and you start putting yourself in this box where you can't grow as an artist. You can't grow as this creative. So I want to be able to go, all right, whatever kind of comes our way sort of thing. And we were working on a project, and within 48 hours, this other project that I talked about years ago, all of a sudden that's just grown legs, and that's what's happening next. And you go, well, hang on, we were just working on this for the last few months. This is what I had set my head and my mind to. This is what I'm doing next. Ready to announce it, 7 Network and all that on board, ready to announce it. And then this other project I was really passionate about, but I knew it wasn't going to happen. Couldn't get the rights to it or whatever. Just all of a sudden just went bang. And now that's been pushed aside, and now this other project's there, and that will be announcing end of July. And it's like, okay, well, that's not what we set out to do. And so for me, I've never even thought about it. Like 5-10 years from now, I've never thought about it. I'm like, let's just keep making stuff and telling incredible stories. As long as I get to work with an amazing cast and crew like I did, and I get to if I get to direct and I get to tell these stories and I get to put an incredible story on the screen, that's cool. That's what I want to set out.
You've got a lot of fishing rods in the water, and you're just adapting depending on what happens.
Yeah, it's like whoever bites.
For anyone who is looking to get started in film, or who is new to film, what advice would you give them?
I wish someone back. So I guess the best way to answer this is that when I was studying film, I wish someone had turned around and actually said, oh, look, you're actually going to learn more making your own stuff, because when you're at university or TAFE or whatever it may be, they don't teach you about the business side of it. And 90% of filmmaking is business. It's the contracts, it's the distribution deals, it's the phone calls, it's the face-to-face meeting, it's the problem solvings, it's the project management, it's all business. Then you get on set for 6 weeks and it's still business on set, but you get to be creative in a sense, get to direct. So I wish someone kind of taught me that, but also going actually just go out and make stuff. So over the last couple months, I haven't been on set, but I'm about to go and direct the next project. But in between that, I've been doing a bit of writing, then going, oh, how would I shoot that? I'd storyboard it this way, I'd shoot it this way, or going, okay, I'm going to put a bit of a highlight reel together, or a family or someone important and whatnot, and going, okay, well, actually, let's get creative here. How can we make this look creative? And what I mean by that is like Christmas time, I'd go out with family and I'd take photos and then I put them together in a little video, and it sounds really silly, but it's just something to kind of go, oh yeah, that's right, that's how that works. And more so writing stuff, or just writing a scene, thinking of a scene, like I was saying before, when you kind of actually have peace, which is very rare because the phone doesn't stop. but it's being able to have that time to actually switch off and go, okay, now I'm switching off, but oh yeah, this is a good idea. That's a good idea. Let's write it. Let's storyboard it, etc. So, yeah, definitely that. But yeah, my other big advice would definitely be look into the business side of it. You want to be doing as much research as possible, and the more you start making stuff yourself, the more you're going to learn along the way, because half of it's self-taught. It usually is. And half of the times I never had someone to go, oh yeah, that deal that's been offered is a good deal. I had to trust my gut and go, actually no, I think I can push for a better deal than that. Going back, pushing, because as a producer, you're also in sales. Really, I'm selling you an idea. Come on this film with me, or I'm selling you a project, etc. So yeah, it was all of that sort of stuff I've kind of learned through the short films, the previous Western and the war film, working on other sets. And that's what I'm really excited about now, is working for this big studio that's coming up, but then also getting to work on another film that we'll be co-producing with other countries next year. I'll get to learn stuff off this other production, but also that I've learned all the way along, and you get to apply it. And and then you'll be in that a certain point in time where you'll need to make a decision. You'll go, well, that doesn't work because I remember XYZ when that happened on this other project. So it's but I mean, look, it's such a fast-paced industry. Things by the time you have finished a production, it could be ready that suddenly that streaming service has gone, oh, actually, we're not interested in this genre. We're now interested in this genre. So you always also got to be looking 3 years in advance, or you've got to have your sales up front. So that way you kind of secure yourself. And so it's very fast paced, but I love it. It's great. It's awesome to be able to do what I get to do and work.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I am glad that you said the thing about the business side of it, because I think that's important. And I think it's important to be able to develop the balance between the two, between the business and the creative side, because often you see people and they'll be one way or the other. You'll have so many filmmakers out there who are so passionate about their ideas and the creative side of it, but they don't know how to structure it in a business sense and actually market it and distribute it and all that stuff. And then you have the other side where people are all about business.
And look, don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for it. You never want to go into a film going, oh, we're going to make heaps of money, because then you're not actually in it for what you should be in it for. You should be in it passionate about the story, and then everything will just come your way because you're doing what's right by that story. So that's kind of where it's like, you've got to find that place. And like you said, you've got to have that balance. And if you've got that balance, then, you pretty much...
That's it. That's the winning formula right there, I think. Absolutely. So we're going to let you get off to your plane pretty soon. Thank you for taking a bit of time out of your Friday, whatever day this is.
It's a bit like that, isn't it?
Just chatting with me and getting into the nitty gritty details of film. Yeah, I always just have a lot of fun just talking about film. I could talk for like hours on end, just getting deeper into it. Yeah,
I know the feeling.
yeah, exactly. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing what you do next.
No worries, and I'll see you at the documentary screening.
Absolutely, I'll see you there. All right, see you later, Jordan.